In January 2011, landslides and floods followed heavy rain in the mountainous region of Rio de Janeiro state in southeastern Brazil. These events led to a huge disaster registered in Brazilians' recent history. It destroyed hundreds of homes, killed more than 900 people, made at least 14,000 people homeless, and caused the equivalent of $1.2 billion in property damage. Good day, everyone. Today, we are going to tackle all about mass wasting. To formally start the discussion, let me introduce myself first. I am Princess Nicole V. Alsado, the first reporter of Group 10. To guide us along the way, let us follow the 5 learning objectives of my report. As mentioned a while ago, landslides and floods followed heavy rain in the mountainous region of Rio de Janeiro state in southeastern Brazil, led to a huge disaster registered in Brazilians' recent history. This tragedy highlights how geology influences every aspect of human life. The main causes of Brazilian mudslides can be found elsewhere in the world. Landslides cause an average between 25 and 50 deaths per year in the United States and thousands per year worldwide. Also, it is estimated that landslide costs between $2 billion and $4 billion in damage in the United States annually. By being able to recognize and understand how landslides occur and what the outcomes may be, we can find ways and methods to lessen the hazards and minimize damage in terms of both human life and property damage. Now, what is mass wasting? Mass wasting, also called as mass movement, is the downslope movement of earth materials under the direct influence of gravity. The term landslide is commonly used as a synonym for mass wasting, but mass wasting is a much broader term referring to all downslope movement. In mass wasting, it can be either slow or rapid movement. Geologically, a landslide is a general term for mass wasting that involves fast-moving geologic material. Mass movement usually happens when a slope is too steep to remain stable with existing material and conditions, or when a slope exceeds its resisting force. The resisting forces that keep a slope's stability include the slope material's strength and cohesion, the amount of internal friction between grains, and any external support of the slope. These factors collectively define a slope's shear strength. Soil with higher shear strength has stronger particle cohesion and more friction or interlocking to prevent particles from sliding over each other. The steeper a slope's angle is, the greater the component of force acting parallel to the slope and the greater the chance for mass wasting. The steepest angle that a slope can maintain without collapsing is its angle of repose. At this angle, the shear strength of the slope's material exactly counterbalances the force of gravity. All slopes are in dynamic equilibrium, which means they are always adjusting to changing conditions. Although we typically think of mass wasting as a disruptive and destructive occurrence, it is one of the ways a slope adjusts to changing conditions. Whenever a building or road is constructed on a hillside, the equilibrium of that slope is affected. The slope must then respond to these new conditions, perhaps through mass wasting. There are several factors that influence mass wasting, but ultimately it is a battle between friction and gravity. If the friction on the rock is stronger than gravity for a particular slope, the rock material will likely stay. But if gravity is stronger, the slope will fail. You can see in the slide the list of the main factors that can cause mass wasting. These are the slope angle, weathering and climate, water content, vegetation, overloading, geology and slope stability, and triggering mechanisms. Now, let us discuss these factors one by one. First off, the slope angle. Slope angle is probably one of the causes of mass wasting. The steeper the slope, the faster the movement. When you roll a ball on a gentle slope, the ball will move relatively slowly. However, if you increase the angle, the ball will roll down much faster. It is because gravity becomes stronger when increasing the angle of the slope. Therefore, steep slopes are more likely to experience mass wasting than gentle ones. Several processes can oversteepen a slope, but one of the most common processes is undercutting a slope's base by a stream or wave action. This process removes the slope's base, increases the slope angle, and thereby increases the gravitational force acting parallel to the slope. Wave actions, especially during storms, often result in mass movements along the shores of oceans or large lakes. Another cause of slope failure is excavations for road cuts and hillside building sites. Highway excavations disturbs the equilibrium of a slope by removing a portion of its support, as well as oversteepening it at the point of excavation, which can result in landslides along the highway. Grading the slope too steeply or cutting into its side increases the stress in the rock or soil until it is no longer strong enough to remain at the steeper angle, and mass movement ensues. Now, let's proceed to weathering and climate. An area's amount and nature of rainfall received can determine the likelihood of a mass movement. The area which receives heavy rainfall experiences massive landslides, especially where the slope is steep. Also, as soon as the rock is exposed to the surface of the earth, weathering begins to disintegrate and decompose it, reducing its shear strength and increasing its susceptibility to mass wasting. The type of climate also helps in determining what kind of mass wasting it is. Humid climates tend to have slides where water-saturated slopes fail and fall. Drier climates tend to have rocks that fall. Canyons and places that are prone to wildfires tend to have debris flow. Next in line is the water content. Water is one of the major factors that can cause mass wasting. We all know that water is heavy, so it adds weight. Also, water is a lubricant, so it reduces friction. Thus, the gravitational force is increased due to the weight, and the friction force is decreased due to this lubrication. Water percolating through a slope's material helps to decrease friction between grains, thus contributing to a loss of cohesion. Moreover, many mass wasting occur right after or during heavy rain events. Large quantities of water from melting snow or heavy rainfall greatly increase the likelihood of a slope failure. In short, the higher the water content, the less stable the slope. Moving on, let's discuss how vegetation can cause mass movement. Vegetation actually does two things. First, the roots are effective at holding soil in place, and second, it takes in a tremendous amount of water. By absorbing the water from a rainstorm, vegetation decreases the water saturation of a slope's material, which would otherwise lead to a loss of shear strength. The removal of vegetation by either natural or human activity is a major cause of many mass movements. According to American Forests, a non-profit conservation organization, a large mature tree can take up as much as 100 gallons of water per day and release it into the atmosphere. Now imagine an entire forest. It could literally absorb tons of water, right? But once these trees are removed, that would be a lot of extra water to be present in the soil. And as mentioned previously, water is one of the major triggers of mass movement. So that is how vegetation influences mass wasting. Now let's proceed to overloading. Overloading, or the excessive addition of a surcharge load or external load on a hill slope section, is one of the external factors influencing slope stability. Adding weight to a weakened slope can cause it to slide easier, especially on steep slopes. The additional weight created by overloading increases the water pressure within the material, which in turn decreases its shear strength, thereby weakening the slope material. If enough material is added, the slope will eventually fail, sometimes with tragic consequences. Now, another factor that influences mass wasting is geology and slope stability. Geology plays an important role in the mass movement. It includes the rock types, the depth of the rock layers, or the structural nature of the area. The relationship between the topography of an area and its geology is important in determining slope stability. If the rocks underlying a slope dip in the same direction as the slope, mass wasting is more likely to occur than if the rocks are horizontal or dip in the opposite direction. When the rocks dip in the same direction as the slope, water can percolate along the various bedding planes and decrease the cohesiveness and friction between adjacent rock units. Even if the rocks are horizontal or dip in a direction opposite to that of the slope, joints may dip in the same direction as the slope. Water migrating through them weathers the rock and expands these openings until the weight of the overlying rock causes it to fall. So much for that, let's proceed to the last one, the triggering mechanisms. The most common triggering mechanisms are strong vibrations from earthquakes and excessive amounts of water from a winter snowmelt or heavy rainstorm. The best example of this is the landslide in La Conchita, California. This event was triggered by heavy rains which destroyed 9 homes in 1995. In 2005, 10 years later after that incident, the same factors caused another landslide in that area. So before we proceed to the next reporter, let's first have a quick summary about the topic. Mass wasting or mass movement is the downslope movement of earth materials under the direct influence of gravity. In other words, the outer crust of the earth is being wasted away on a massive scale and falling to lower elevations. Mass movement usually happens when a slope is too steep to remain stable with existing material and conditions. Shear strength determines its resistance to deformation by tangential or shear stress. Soil with higher shear strength has stronger particle cohesion and more friction or interlocking to prevent particles from sliding over each other. The 7 main factors that can cause mass wasting includes slope angle, weathering and climate, water content, vegetation, overloading, geology and slope stability, and triggering mechanisms. The slope gradient is probably a major cause of mass wasting. The steeper the slope, the less stable it is. Additionally, in regions that are undergoing extensive chemical weathering, there is a higher probability of mass movement of the unconsolidated material. In terms of water content, the higher the water content, the less stable the slope. Aside from that, vegetation can absorb water which can prevent from percolating into the unconsolidated material. Moreover, additional weight created by overloading increases the water pressure which may decrease its shear strength. Furthermore, if the rocks dip in the same direction as the slope, or if there are joints which dip in the direction of the slope, mass wasting is more likely to occur. So once again, I am Princess Nicole Alsado and that's all for my report.
Good day everyone, I'm Arianne Pepito and I'm going to report about types of mass wasting. So the first one is the mass movement. Mass movement are defined as a process of erosion, transport, and accumulation of materials that occur on both gently and steep slopes mainly owing to gravitational forces. Thus, mass movements result in leveling and forming of landscape. Mass movement are generally classified on the basis of 3 major criteria. The first one is the rate of movement. Is it rapid or slow? Rapid mass movement involve a visible movement of material. Such movements usually occur quite suddenly and the material moves quickly downslope. Rapid mass movements are potentially dangerous and frequently result in loss of life and property damage. Most rapid mass movement occur on relatively steep slopes and can involve rock, soil, or debris. Slow mass movements advance at an imperceptible rate and are usually detectable only by the effects of their movements, such as tilted trees and other poles or cracked foundations. Although rapid mass movements are more dramatic, slow mass movements are responsible for the downslope transport of a much greater volume of weather materials. The second one is a type of movement. Is it primarily folding, sliding, or flowing? The third one is a type of material involved. rock, soil, or debris. So the second type of mass wasting is faults. Faults. This is generally characterized by rapid or extremely rapid rate of movement with the descent of material characterized by a free fall period. Faults are commonly triggered by earthquakes or erosion processes. Rock faults are commonly type of extremely rapid mass movements in which rocks of any sizes may fall through the air. Rock falls occur along the steep canyons, cliffs, and road cuts, and they build up accumulations of loose rocks and and rock fragments on their base called talus. So as you can see on the peak, this is the talus. Talus slopes are the type of Talus slopes are a type in which debris piles up to a characteristic angle of repose. When the new debris is added to the slope, thereby locally increasing the angle, the slope adjusts by movement of the debris to re-establish the angle. So the third type of mass wasting is slide. Slide is one of the most common forms of failures and can be subdivided into translational and rotational slides. Rotational slides are sometimes called slumps because they move with rotation, and translational slides have a planar or two-dimensional surface of rupture. Slides are the most common when the two of the slope is undercut. They have a moderate rate of movement and the coherence of a material is retained, moving largely intact or broken pieces. So there are two types of slides that are generally recognized. The first one is the slumps or rotational slides. A slumps involves the downward movement of material along the curved surface of rupture and is characterized by the backward rotation of the slump block. Slumps usually occur in unconsolidated or weakly consolidated material and range in sizes from small individual sets, such as those occurring along stream banks, to massive multiple sets that affects large areas and cause considerable damage. Slumps can be caused by a variety of factors, but the most common is erosion along the base of a slope, which removes the support for the overlaying material. This local steeping may be caused naturally by stream erosion along its bank or by wave action at the base of a coastal peak. The second one is the rock or block slides. A particular type of translational slides that occur when large and relatively intact slabs of rock or earth are rapidly transported downslope. This type of landslides can be large and damaging and occur with their alternating layers of strong and weak rock slope. So the fourth one on types of mass wasting is the geofocus. The books tells about Southern California landslides. So Southern California is no stranger to landslides. La Conchita, Point Fermin, Pacific Palisades or Pacific Palisades, and Laguna Beach are all locations that have been suffered damaging mass movement during the past 50 years. Two regions in particular, La Conchita and Laguna Beach, have been in the news because of the landslides that destroyed numerous homes. La Conchita is a small community along the coast at the base of a 100-meter high terrace, 120-kilometer northwest of Los Angeles, California. On March 4, 1995, following a period of heavy rains, a massive 200,000 cubic meter slides destroyed or damaged 9 homes in its path. Almost 10 years later, following a week of heavy rainfall, which saturated the hillside and previous landslide deposits, another landslides occurred in the same area. What went wrong and why this situation repeated? The rocks that make up the steep slope terrace behind La Conchita consist of soft, weak, and porous sediments are not well litified and thus are easily weathered and susceptible to a mass wasting.
So today I'm Trexie Palencia. I will discuss about the flows. What is flows? Flows is a mass movement in which material flows as a viscous fluid or displaced plastic movement. The rate of movement ranges from extremely slow to extremely rapid. In many cases, mass movement begins as a falls, slumps, or slides and change into flows farther down slope. There are 7 types of flows, namely mud flows, debris flows, earth flows, quick clay, solidification, permafrost, creep. So the first one is mud flows. Mud flows the most fluid and move most rapidly. A speed up to 80 km per hour, they consist of at least 50% silt and clay-sized materials combined with significant amount of water up to 30%. A stream flow that is heavily suspended in the silt and suspended particles can only deposit the cursed portion of its load due to its higher density and viscosity than a stream flow, which result in irreversible sediment absorption. In dry and semi-arid regions, mud flows are frequent. They are brought by the sudden intense downpours that quickly saturate the sedimentary materials, turning it into a rumbling stream of mud that drags everything in its path under. Additionally, mud flows can happen in a mountainous place and in region where volcanic ash has been dusted, where they can be very damaging. Due to their fluid nature, mud flows often allow pre-existing channels until the slope is reduced or the channel becomes wider, at which time they fan outward. Here are some examples of mud flows. Next is debris flows. Debris flows are composed of larger particles than mud flows and do not contain as much water. Consequently, they move as rapidly and rarely are confined to a pre-existing channel. Debris flows are fast-moving landslides that are particularly dangerous to life and property because they are move quickly, destroy objects in their path, and move strike without warning. A debris flow is a mixture of water particles that is gravitationally driven down the slope. They are often composed of unsteady, non-uniform surges of muddy water mixed with large concentrations of rock fragments of various shapes and sizes. And debris flows may collect a considerable amount of materials and move at a high speed as they travel down the slope. Because of the changes in rainfall patterns, urbanization of mountain areas, and abandonment of cultivated land in recent decades, the frequency of debris flows and the hazard associated with them has increased considerably, posing a significant threat of life and property. So in the picture so in the picture are the example of debris flows. Next is the earth flows. Earth flows move more slowly than either mud flows or debris flows. An earth flow slumps from the upper part of the hillside, leaving the scarp and flows slowly downslope landslide, with no guarantee it will not happen again in the near future. The causes of the earth's flows are a rapid earth flow usually start in modest landslide on the rocky slope where a stream or river drains the valley into vulnerable clay deposit. Such earth flows have been caused by excessive precipitation, raising groundwater levels, earthquake, pile driving, and long-term erosion. So here are the example of earth flow. The quick clay. Quick clays, some clays spontaneously liquefy and flow like water when they are disturbed. Quick clays are composed of fine silken clay particles made by the grinding action of glaciers. The ions in salt water help establish strong bonds between the clay particles, thus stabilizing and strengthening the clay. A quick clay is one in which the soil's untouched shear strength is at least 30 times larger than the remolded or disturbed shear strength. Sensitively is defined as the ratio of unchanged to disturbed strength. As a result, a fast clay is particularly delicate. Continue. The solidification is a slow downslope movement of water saturating surface. The solidification can occur in any climate where the ground becomes saturated with water but is most common in the area of permafrost. A solidification is Maslowian downslope movement of saturated soil and regolith. A regolith, okay, the layer of unconsolidated rocky material covered by the bedrock. Kani siya. Kani. Ang bedrock sad is a solid rock lying underlying losing deposit such as soil. So mo ni siya. Masya may nga ni siya. Itong siyang hinay nga movement. May aning-aning na siya. Next. Permafrost. The ground that remains permanently frozen covers nearly 20% of the world's land surface. Permafrost is a permanent frozen layer that exists on or beneath the Earth's surface. Mo ni siya during a part mo ni ang permafrost. It is made of dirt, gravel, and sand usually held together by the ice. For at least 2 years, permafrost normally persists at or below 0 degrees Celsius. Permafrost can be found both on land and beneath the ocean surface. Di siya makita diri sa land pero nasa din siya sa tubig. Permafrost starts to melt as the Earth's climate warps. This means that the ice inside the permafrost melt, releasing the water and soil. Permafrost drowning can have far-reaching consequences for our planet and the inhabitants. As an example, permafrost started to melt the Earth's Permafrost is used to build several northern communities. Permafrost is harder than concrete when frozen. Freezing permafrost, on the other hand, has the potential to destroy houses, roads, and other infrastructure. So, mali siya mo ni ang katong ice niya sa frozen niya. Mo ni siya ang permafrost nga nigahi sad. Kani siya mo ni ang katong soil nga active layer. Next, the creep. The slow The slowest type of flow is the most widely spread and significant mass wasting process in terms of total amount of materials moved downslope and the monetary damage it goes annually. Creep involves extremely slow downhill movement of the soil or rock. Although it can occur anywhere in any climate, it is most effective and significant as a geologic agent in human regions. So, creep can cause large displacement in structure depending on the building, materials, structural design, and service circumstances. Severe creep strains can cause serviceability issues, stress redistribution, pre-stress loss, and potentially structure event failure. The most important process production creep, aside from direct gravitational influences, is frost laving. As interstitially water freezes, surface particles are forced up and out perpendicular to the slope. When they let down by melting, the particles are drawn directly downward by the gravity. Same niya. And thereby gradually move downslope. The other processes involved are the ridging action of the root growth and wetting and drying of the soil layers. Mo ni siya. Kung asa magdepende siya sa kuan sa iyang yuta o sa iyang growth asa pado roughy grounds, board fences built and pulled apart ni siya. Tension cracks, steel pavement, dead rails, and utility poles. So, the last part is the complex movement. When one type is dominant, the movement can be classified as one of those described thus far. If several types are more or less equally involved, however, it is called complex movement. The most common type of complex movement is a slide flow, in which there is sliding at the head and then some type of the flowage weather along its course. Complex movement, a mix of multiple sorts of mass movement in which no single type leads, typically involve in sliding and flowing. Sama ni siya, a complex movement in which slumping occurs at the head and followed by the earth flow. Siya. Mo na yung movement, ang complex movement. So that's all my discussion.
Today, so we will be talking about recognizing and minimizing the effects of mass wasting. So the topics will be the geologic investigation, slope stability map, using drain pipes to remove subsurface water, stabilizing a hillside by the cut and fill method, stabilizing a hillside by benching, and lastly, retaining walls help reduce landslides. So, how a thorough geologic investigation is the most important factor in eliminating or minimizing the effects of mass wasting. So, a thorough geologic investigation of the area in question is the most crucial element in eradicating or minimizing the harmful effects of mass wasting. In this manner, areas vulnerable to mass movements and former landslides can be found and possibly avoided. Engineers can take action to prevent or lessen the effects of such occurrences by evaluating the risks of potential mass wasting before construction starts. And identifying areas with a high potential for slope failure is important in any hazard assessment study. These studies include identifying former landslides as well as sites of potential mass movement. Scarps, open fissures, displaced or tilted objects, a hummocky surface, and sudden changes in vegetation are some of the features that indicate former landslides or areas susceptible to slope failure. The effects of weathering, erosion, and vegetation may, however, obscure the evidence of previous mass wasting. The information derived from a hazard assessment study can be used to produce slope stability maps of an area. It can be seen in figure 10.22. These maps allow planners and developers to make decisions about where to site roads, utility lines, and housing or industrial developments based on the relative stability or instability of a particular location. The maps also indicate the extent of an area's landslide problem and the type of mass movement that may occur. Although the majority of large mass movements are typically unavoidable, geologists and engineers can use a variety of techniques to reduce the risks damage they cause. Surface and subsurface drainage of a hillside is one of the most effective, efficient and affordable ways to reduce the likelihood of failure, slope failure or to increase existing slope stability because water plays a significant role in many landslides. So drainage serves two purposes. First is it reduces the weight of the material likely to slide, and the second one is it increases the sheet strength of the slope material by lowering pore pressure. So slope stability map. Slope stability map. This slope stability map of part of San Clemente, which can be seen in figure 10.22, San Clemente, California, shows areas delineated according to relative stability. Such maps help planners and developers make decisions about where to site roads, utility lines, buildings, and other structures. As you can see here, the slope stability map of San Clemente, California, in figure 10.32. Surface waters can be drained and diverted by ditches, gutters, or culverts designed to direct water away from slopes. Drain pipes perforated along one surface and driven into a hillside can help remove subsurface water, which can be seen in figure 10.23. Finally, planting vegetation on hillsides also helps stabilize slopes by holding the soil together and reducing the amount of water in the soil. Another way to help stabilize a hillside is to reduce its slope. Recall that overloading and oversteepening by grading are common causes of slope failure. Reducing the angle of a hillside decreases the potential for slope failure. So there are two methods in using drain pipes to remove subsurface water. Firstly, on A, driving drain pipes that are perforated on one side into a hillside. with the perforated side up can remove some subsurface water and help stabilize a hillside. B. A drain pipe driven into the hillside at the Point Fermin, California helps to reduce the amount of subsurface water in these porous beds. Next is the cut and fill methods. Cut and fill methods are usually employed to reduce a slope's angle. In the cut and fill method, material is removed from the upper part of the slope and used as a fill at the base, thus providing a flat surface for the construction and reducing the slope, which can be seen here in figure 10.24. Next is stabilizing a hillside by the cut and fill method. One common method used to help stabilize a hillside and reduce its slope, which we have already said, is the cut and fill method. Materials from the steeper upper part of the hillside is removed, thereby decreasing the slope angle, and is used to fill in the base. This provides some additional support at the base of the slope. Next one is stabilizing a hillside by benching. So firstly, which can be seen here in figure 10.25 on A. Another common method used to stabilize a hillside and reduce its slope is benching. This process involves making several cuts along a hillside to reduce the overall slope. Therefore, individual slope failures are now limited in size, and the material collects on the benches. B. Benching is used in many road cuts and can be clearly seen in this photograph, which is in 10.35. Benching is most commonly used in steep hillsides in conjunction with a system of system of surface drains to divert runoff. Next is retaining walls. In some situations, retaining walls are constructed to provide support for the base of the slope, which you can see here in the figure 10.26, the first picture. The walls are usually anchored well into the bedrock, backfilled with crushed rocks, and provide with a drain holes to prevent the buildup of water pressure on the hillside. Next is retaining walls help reduce landslides. A. Retaining walls anchored into bedrock, backfilled with gravel, and provided with drain pipes can support slope space and reduce landslides. Next is B. A steel retaining wall, which can be seen here in the second picture, built to stabilize the slope and keep falling and sliding rocks off the highway. Recognition, prevention, and control of landslide-prone areas are expensive, but not nearly as expensive as the damage can be when such warning signs are ignored or not recognized. Unfortunately, there are numerous examples of landfill and dam collapses, such as the January 2019 mining dam collapse in Brazil, that serve as tragic reminders of the price paid in loss of lives and property damage when the warning signs of impending disasters are ignored. That will be all for me about recognizing and minimizing. Thank you for listening.
In summary, mass wasting is the downslope movement of material under the direct influence of gravity. It may result in loss of life as well as millions to billions of dollars in damage annually. Mass wasting occurs when the gravitational force acting parallel to a slope exceeds the slope's shear strength. The major factors causing mass wasting include slope angle, weathering and climate, water content, overloading, and removal of vegetation. It is usually several of these factors in combination that results in slope failure. Mass movements are classified on the basis of the rate of movement, rapid versus slow, type of movement, falling, sliding, or flowing, and type of material, rock, soil, or debris. Rock falls are a common mass movement on which rocks free fall. They are common along steep canyons, cliffs, and road cuts. The two types of slides are slumps and rock slides. Slumps, or rotational slides, involve movement along a curved surface and are most common in poorly consolidated or unconsolidated material. Rock slides, also known as block slides, occur when movement takes place along a more or less planar surface, and they usually involve solid pieces of rock. Rate of movement, rapid versus slow, type of material, rock, sediment or soil, and amount of water are the criteria used to recognize the several types of flows. Mud flows consist of mostly clay and silt-sized particles and contain up to 30% water. They are most common in semi-arid and arid environments and generally follow pre-existing channels. Debris flows are composed of larger particles and contain less water than mud flows. Earth flows move more slowly than either debris flows or mud flows and move downslope as thick, viscous tongue-shaped masses of wet regolith. Quick clays are clays that spontaneously liquefy and flow like water when they are disturbed. Solifluction is the slow downslope movement of water-saturated surface material and is most common in areas of permafrost. Creep, the slowest type of flow, is the imperceptible downslope movement of soil or rock. It is the most widespread of all types of mass wasting. Complex movements are combinations of different types of mass movements in which no single type is dominant. Most complex movements involve sliding and flowing. The most important factor in reducing or eliminating the damaging effects of mass wasting is a thorough geologic investigation to outline areas susceptible to mass movements. Although mass movement cannot be eliminated, its effects can be minimized by building retaining walls, draining excess water, regrading slopes, and planting vegetation. So that's the end of our report revolving around the concept of mass wasting. Thank you, and once again, good day.